Hey, it's your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today. Zooming in a little bit further into the concept of the pathology of narcissistic supply. Exactly what does it mean to have a narcissist personality disorder and have a pathological need for supply? Narcissist supply was a term coined by a psychoanalyst, Mr. Otto Frenick, in the early 1900s. He was a predecessor, in the second school of psychoanalysis after Freud. And he arrived at this term. He was looking at the pathological need of an individual who presented with narcissist personality disorder. Someone who had an excessive need for admiration from others, affirmation from others, really, and deriving their sustenance and support from an undue need to be surrounding themselves with others, which we are deeming here called narcissist supply. So he had arrived at this concept and had really explored this, feeling that the origin of narcissism or narcissistic personality disorder derived out of a childhood for that person, for that individual, where their individual needs were not met. Either their oral needs, meaning their need for food, love, attention, something of that nature. So it created an emptiness. It created a void. It created essentially a hole within them that caused them to seek undue amounts of attention from those in their environment. Think of the class clown. Think of the bully. Think of the rock star musician who are constantly seeking admiration from others. And it cannot sometimes be, it's essentially filling up a real need in their life, which they're not able to fill on their own. Now, self-esteem, when we think about what self-esteem is, it means knowing your self-worth. It means knowing that you're a person, that has valid opinion, valid insight, valid feelings, and essentially that this is within you, and it's not necessarily derived from any object that you have. In other words, I don't get self-esteem because I have some sort of material object. It's an intrinsic, meaning internal, sense of self-worth. Now, it's thought that the narcissist personality disordered individual derives this self-esteem, this gratification, this self-worth from the amount of people and the type of people that they surround themselves with. So in other words, they do not feel sustained on a esteem level, an emotional level, a personal level, unless they have active primary and secondary sources of supply. So it is their number one priority to surround themselves with people who can bolster up their ego, bolster up their admiration, bolster up their self-worth through essentially being their supply, putting them first, constantly feeding into their needs for applause, acknowledgement, support. Think of the musician who needs you to go, yeah, that was an awesome song. And the main differentiating feature here of the NPD person and then the individual with normal, sort of healthy self-esteem or not so high on the narcissist personality disorder is that the general healthy person is able to take into account the feeling, needs, and opinions of others. So in other words, they're able to listen to people, they're able to understand where they're coming from. The individual with narcissist personality disorder will surround themselves with supply to look good and do this with little sort of denial and lacking to take into account. They will not take into account the feelings, opinions, or preferences of other people. So if they're not if they're not acknowledging, if they're not accepting another's needs, acknowledging another's preferences or another's opinion, they're basically sources of supply. So in other words, I hear a lot of viewers describe this as a very one-sided relationship, where you feel like you're continually having to bolster them up. And, you know, yeah, that was so great. You know, yeah, you did, you know, your job, you know, you got that awesome promotion, and you're constantly talking about them. You know, your raise is amazing. It's so amazing that you got this grade point average, and you know, you're so competitive, and it's amazing you get to travel with this incredible job, and you know, you really are number one. You are the man, you are the woman, and you have to constantly feed them this sort of information and accolade, so that you're constantly bolstering them up, telling them how great they are, affirming, man, you are awesome. You know, yes, there's a place for support in all relationships, you know, because it keeps everybody on track. You know, good job handling that, or, you know, good discussion of that, or like, yeah, man, I get where you're coming from. That's normal. I mean, that's a normal part of relationship. But it becomes pathological in the narcissist, where they seek this very much from others and to the exploitation of their needs. In other words, they'll surround themselves with people who satisfy this need for supply and not take really their needs, their position into account. Oftentimes will work to negatively validate them, meaning deny them outright their needs, their requests, things that they are seeking in the relationship. In other words, shut that down, and they will basically use all that you have to offer, and then when they're tired of you, you're no longer there to puff up their ego, bolster their self-confidence, serve as a source of supply. You get the devaluing, which is, you know, the criticism, the harsh judgment, and then you get the discard. Excuse me. Where they ultimately let the entire relationship go, and you're wondering, what in the world just happened here? You know, why did I deserve this? I thought we were, you know, so great. We had all these great times together. You know, I thought that this was such a great fit. We were such a great match. So the narcissist has this calculated from the beginning. In fact, they'll surround themselves with people who they really don't even like. If they look good, they have certain credentials, they have certain money. If it can bolster them up and make them look good, then really that's what they're all about. Period. End of the story. And the people who have served as supply, either in relationships, business acquaintances, or otherwise, you know, have been very disturbed by them, because they often feel that their opinions are overlooked. Their valid input is not desired, not heard, not listened to, and basically they're walked over and treated unfairly, you know, essentially like crap. And they're wondering, you know, but they seem to be so accepting of me. That's when the table turns. So, you know, realize that it goes into situations where the narcissist will you know, identify the best sources in their environment. You know, the superiors, they feel that they should be in the presence of these superiors, and you know, that they should just launch onto you know, certain special treatments, special favors, you know, because based on their ego, and they will do sometimes whatever's required to arrive at the top and make themselves look good, much to the dismay and making others look bad. Peace and harmony with you here today. I hope these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.